Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last Idaho Falls Luncheon with the Idaho Falls Rotary Club for 2020. I am so excited about today's program, but before we introduce our speaker, I just have a couple of announcements. One, I hope Rotarians, you're going to join us tonight for our Zoom no place like home game night virtual holiday party. Brandy Newton is going to be our game meister. And for those of you who know Brandy, you know that means we are going to have a fun time. So I hope you will look for the Zoom link in your email that came out from Carrie this morning. You'll log on with us at between 5:45 and 6. We'll have a little bit of social time, and then we'll start with games at 6 o'clock. And so it's just going to be a fun hangout time and break up and recognition of the holiday. So please join us. We're going to have a blast. Also, I just want to take a minute to thank everybody for all of your support and service so far during the year. We are all settling into some Zoom fatigue and really wanting to spend time together. And of course, we just need to continue to be vigilant, take care of ourselves and our neighbors. So we appreciate IE Productions for continuing to make this platform available for us to present our speakers to the community and continue to connect. But I wish all of you and your families a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, all of the wonderful holidays we have coming up over the next few weeks. But now I am very, very excited to introduce not only a very talented workforce development professional, but a dear friend and colleague, Wendi Secrist. Wendi is the executive director for the Idaho Workforce Development Council, and she took over this role in 2017 as an appointment from the governor to set up this new division of the Office of the Governor to really serve Idaho and our employers and the workforce needs that we have to continue to be an economic driver for our state. The Workforce Development Council also serves as our state workforce investment board, and they oversee Idaho's Workforce Development Training Fund. Before coming to the council with all of this experience, Wendi previously worked for the Idaho Career and Technical Education Department, working with their secondary and post-secondary workforce training programs as their Director of Business Outreach. And prior to the CTE appointment, Wendi worked for, you guys don't laugh, I don't have my glasses on and this is small print. Wendi was the Senior Director for Manpower Group's Public Sector, the world's leader in innovative workforce solutions. Wendi, of course, has served as on the board of directors for the National Association of Workforce Boards. She's the past president of the Idaho Economic Development Association, which is actually where Wendi and I first met 15 years ago. So I am so excited for what she's going to share for you today, and I will turn our time over to Wendi Secrist. Welcome, Wendi.
Thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll share with you, I have an Eastern Idaho connection. I actually spent part of my childhood in Idaho Falls. Went to Westside Elementary for 6th grade and then Eagle Rock for 7th through 9th and started my sophomore year at Skyline High before we moved to Oregon. My dad was an air traffic controller, so we kind of bounced around the Northwest as I was growing up. But if you can see in the background here, I've got a picture of the Tetons in my office because I truly love the scenery in Eastern Idaho, and it's nice to be able to continue to work with folks throughout the state of Idaho. So I am going to kick off by just giving an overview of the Idaho Workforce Development Council and share a little bit about what we're responsible for, what we do in supporting workforce development initiatives throughout the state. So as Michelle mentioned, the The council has existed in various forms for well over 20 years. It was set up prior to 2017 as an advisory board to the Idaho Department of Labor. A group of employers approached Governor Otter about the efforts going on across many state agencies and education to support workforce development, and with some concerns about a lack of coordination and collaboration among those various workforce partners. And Governor Otter at the time appointed a workforce development task force who took about 6 months to look at what was going on in the state. And that task force very quickly recognized that while the Workforce Development Council was the entity that should be coordinating these efforts, they probably weren't structurally in the right place to be able to do that effectively. Being attached to only one agency, when the task force looked at the various efforts going on in the state to support workforce development, they quickly identified 8 different agencies, 25 different programs, 161 million plus that were, supporting various workforce development efforts. And the task force recommended that the council be elevated into a role where they could really work across all of those agencies and education throughout the state. So at the end of 2017, Governor Otter formally moved the council to the office of the governor, and I was appointed as the director at that time. And the council we had some new members added to the council, and on the slide you can see we've got a 37-member council where we try to make sure that the state is represented both geographically and by our industries. So we've got individuals from all the way up in, I think Sandpoint is our northernmost, and Rexburg and Idaho Falls are easternmost folks, but we've got folks from all over the state representing the needs of our local communities, of both employers and our citizens who need to connect in order to have a highly skilled workforce and have our companies have what they need to grow in the state. So the governor charged us with 3 big lofty goals. And the first one is increasing public awareness of and access to career education and training opportunities. The task force recognized that we could have all sorts of wonderful training programs at our institutions, but if our kids, our youth, our transitioning adults didn't know about them, didn't know about the opportunities that awaited them if they pursued certain training paths, that we wouldn't be effective in meeting the goals. We're also charged with improving the effectiveness, quality, and coordination of programs and services designed to maintain a highly skilled workforce. So it goes back to, not only coordinating those efforts, but making sure that we're incorporating best practices and, and that we're really on the cutting edge of meeting the needs of Idaho's employers. And then the third one is to provide for the most efficient use of federal, state, and local workforce development resources. That 161 million, which was just something we identified from a quick scan. There's more than that going on, but we want to make sure that we're all headed towards the same goals. So that coordination, collaboration is just a huge part of what we do. And I'm going to talk through a number of different programs that are designed to support both employers and Idahoans to fulfill that vision of having a diverse, highly skilled workforce in Idaho. So 2 of the big programs that we oversee that Michelle mentioned in my bio are the Workforce Development Training Fund grants and the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, where we're the state workforce board. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on our grant programs. If their contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So if there's something that strikes you, please reach out to me or my staff, and we'd be happy to talk to you about the opportunities. But in Idaho, every time an employer pays their unemployment insurance taxes, 3% of that goes into a fund to help train the workforce. And we provide grants to a multitude of organizations, industry sector grants, innovation grants, employer grants, and outreach projects So we've worked very closely with Michelle at CEI and others at CEI to expand their efforts on cybersecurity and welding and nuclear quality assurance training. And let's see, we have another small innovation grant over in Salmon for GPS GIS that they're working on. So we can work with education organizations. We can work with associations and community-based organizations. We have a grant with Associated General Contractors to put on a program that they call the Construction Career Launcher, and they work with the colleges in each part of the state to do this. But it's a way to help folks transition into the construction industry. In Idaho, pre-pandemic, we certainly didn't have the number of unemployed individuals, equal to the number of job openings that we had. So, we had to look at how do we transition folks from jobs that perhaps aren't, don't pay a sustainable wage, that, they're underemployed, so they're more qualified for the position than what they're doing. And how do we help them transition into other positions? And so that sector grant, was one way of helping transition folks into the construction industry. We do direct grants to employers. So if an employer is growing, expanding in the state, we can provide a grant to help train their workforce. So, sometimes it's just an investment in new technology, and the folks that are working in that business don't have the qualifications to do that job. So we can help offset some of those costs of retraining them so that they are able to keep their employment. We do innovation grants, which are just small projects to meet specific community needs, and then that outreach component. How do we create opportunities to increase visibility between education and careers? As our responsibilities under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, that's a federal program that gives guidance for how Idaho's one-stop system, and these are government words, and I'm not going to use very many of them here, but basically it's that network of agencies and different partners, community organizations that are all helping Idahoans who may have barriers to employment connect to jobs, and help employers tap into pools of talent that they may not know existed. So I'm going to move to the next slide here. And, to that point, we've got partners that can help any employer access talent pools that they might not be aware of. And many of those programs can help offset the costs of on-the-job training for qualified individuals. So many employers, if you've got federal contracts, if you, or you have a desire to hire veterans or others, these programs can help recruit individuals to your workforce. When I think about, programs that work with people with disabilities, across the nation, 26% of Americans identify as having a disability. And for any organization, you want your workforce to reflect your customer base in order to grow and maintain a strong company. And so, working with these entities to recruit individuals with disabilities or veterans or older citizens, these are all options to find the employees that you need, and then have these programs help make sure that they get the right skills to be effective in your company. We also, I mentioned, play a big role in that outreach component. So informing the workforce. How do we make sure that Idahoans see the job opportunities that we have in the state, and how do we make sure that they understand what skills they need in order to access those job opportunities? If we want our kids to stay in Idaho, we have to provide very clear communication about the skills that employers are working for, and we do that best when we actually ask that question of employers. Gallup did a poll in 2018 that surveyed businesses, and they indicated that only 5% of high school graduates were prepared for the workforce. that only increased to 11% for college graduates. So there's a disconnect between what the education system believes, that they're, putting out and what employers believe that they are, hiring into their companies. And so we have to help bridge that gap and help eliminate some of those skills gaps and communication barriers. This past summer, in response to the pandemic, we did a survey of Idaho businesses to identify the top skills that they're looking for in new hires. And the way that we approached this was we wanted to understand perhaps what had changed since the start of the pandemic, so that we could identify short-term training opportunities for individuals who had either lost their jobs or were still laid off, while waiting to be called back to work, that they could develop additional skills that would be valuable to their employers. So we heard, of the responses, we had 845 responses. And one of the really encouraging things was that 4 out of 5 employers indicated that they have tried to hire somebody since the start of the pandemic. So, if you're kind of following, some of the news from the governor and others, I mean, Idaho's economy, we are not nearly in as bad of shape as other states. And, we're fortunate, but we need to continue to invest in our workforce to make sure that that momentum is sustained. So the survey, we heard loud and clear from employers that the technical skills that they are looking for are actually, just as important, or that the professional skills, the flip side of the soft skills or the professional skills, that kind of go to, those, surveys that you see where, companies are saying that that education isn't preparing kids for the workforce or whatever, but those soft skills, professional skills like, teamwork and trustworthiness and communication skills, that those are equally, if not more important than the technical skills. So, what we did with that survey data was started a new program under our Workforce Development Training Fund that we call Idaho Launch. And Launch provides funding for any Idahoan that wants to improve their skills towards these in-demand jobs. We allocated $2 million of the training fund to pay for the cost of training that was aligned to the skills that we identified throughout the survey. And we expect that this program is really going to become a cornerstone of our efforts. Launch has only been active for about, maybe we're at 45 days right now. We had some additional funding through the CARES Act, through the federal pandemic funding that we were able to use to get this up and going. But we're going to continue this because we know that we need to provide an opportunity for Idahoans to access that next step, that next level of training that's going to, let them move up in their careers and, be able to provide for their families and especially for those that are, just right on the cusp of, one car repair, one doctor bill, putting them back on, public services. So the program, right now we've had to adapt it, obviously, to, mostly online training opportunities, but it's a very flexible program and we'll be able to continue to add or delete training programs based on employer needs as we move forward into the future. And to do that, we have to keep that dialogue open between employers and education and make sure that there's that clear connection, that clear communication as to what skills, what competencies does the workforce need in order to be employable for the jobs that our employers are creating. So we are partnering with the Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry, IACI, to launch an initiative called Talent Pipeline Management. early December, we finished training 30 Idahoans. Michelle was one of them. There's a couple of others from Eastern Idaho that went through the Talent Pipeline Management Academy to learn how to apply kind of a supply chain methodology to workforce development. So, giving an opportunity for employers to sit down and have a conversation about what skills are common across the jobs that they're trying to hire for. What are those, core competencies that everyone needs to have versus what are the things that they can train once they've hired somebody. And so this initiative will help us to continue that connection between employers and education, so that there's clarity as to what we need to be integrating, whether it's into degree programs or short-term training programs or certificates. And I would say to you, I know Rotarians, many of you are employers yourselves, and you may soon be asked to participate in one of these collaboratives and provide that kind of feedback to ensure that we have a tight connection between education and jobs and careers. So I would ask you to please say yes if you're asked to participate in one of the collaboratives. So now I'm going to shift and talk a little bit about some of the very specific talent development strategies that the council has placed a priority on. Apprenticeship has been around in the U.S. for 100 plus years. I mean, apprenticeship is it is the original form of workforce training, right? You think back and Benjamin Franklin was an apprentice. I think he went through, I can't remember what his first apprenticeship was. I think it was candle making was his first apprenticeship, and he didn't like that. And so he became a printing apprentice and, took off from there. But, apprenticeship has been around forever. Other countries, have really leveraged apprenticeship as a workforce development tool. And it's something that nationally, there's a lot of emphasis being placed on growing apprenticeship throughout the U.S. And we see enormous opportunity in Idaho to grow the use of apprenticeship. And typically, when I say apprenticeship in Idaho, people think immediately of the trades of plumbing, electrical, HVAC, construction types of trades. And that's not at all a limiting factor. Construction is not the only industry where apprenticeship can be very, very effective. We've, over the past couple of years, across a couple of different entities, we've been building apprenticeship programs in cybersecurity, in healthcare, in banking, in just a wide variety in IT and technology. So it's a really powerful tool to be able to match a business plan to a talent development plan. Idaho Power uses, they've got 8 different apprenticeship programs for hard to fill positions in their company. And they use it to look at when are they going to have retirements in certain positions. And then so if they project out that somebody's going to be retiring in 4 years and their apprenticeship program is a 4-year program, they know that they need to hire an apprentice who's going to train up and be able to fill that journey role after the retirement happens. And so it's just a really, really powerful tool to really, to become an employer of choice, to, invest in your workforce, to make sure you're getting what you need out of your workforce and play an active role in that. In Idaho, just over the past couple of years, we have accessed 3 separate grants to grow apprenticeship in the state. The council, we have the newest one. We were awarded in July a youth apprenticeship readiness grant, and we're focused on creating school to registered apprenticeship opportunities for high school juniors and seniors. In the state, we know that about 48% of our youth go on to post-secondary education immediately after high school. And while we need to do everything we can to increase that percentage, we also need to be providing alternative post-secondary pathways for those who don't. Every year, about 22,000 students graduate from high school in Idaho. So, if I use friendly numbers and say 50% go on and 50% don't, that's 11,000 students that we need to be providing options for. And, if we can connect them to an apprenticeship program while they're still in high school, that apprenticeship program can lead to an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree. It can lead to a PhD when you think about opportunities in cybersecurity. So we're able to get them on a pathway and let them start working while they're still in high school, and continue with that employer, and be gaining the related instruction or the degree or certificate that they need while they're doing it. And the beautiful part of it is that they end up typically with no college debt. So we think that there's a huge opportunity to grow youth apprenticeship throughout the state, and we were really, really happy to be awarded that grant. The Idaho Division of Career and Technical Education also received a grant about a year ago that the community colleges are all involved in. It is called Closing the Skills Gap. They are focused more on building the education side of the infrastructure and setting up internal systems so that they can be the sponsors of the apprenticeship programs. And then the Department of Labor has had a grant for about 4 years now to help expand apprenticeship in Idaho. And they do a lot to help employers set up the programs and provide that technical assistance to them. So collectively, our goal is to create over 3,000 new apprenticeships in Idaho over the next 4 years. And this is a strategy that really provides a better workforce for the state, and it provides opportunities for our youth. If we want to retain our youth in the state, if we want to connect them, into careers, then apprenticeship is just an amazing opportunity. Work-based learning, though, there's other opportunities beyond apprenticeship, and there's internships and co-ops and all sorts of other opportunities that employers can be engaged in. And we want to create an environment in the state where, it's easy for an educator and an employer to get connected and to, work together. So we created, in partnership with 10 other state agencies, this Idaho Leader Initiative. And I'll talk some of the specifics about it here in just a minute, but it's really an opportunity. We heard that, employers would call schools and say, hey, I'm interested in, meeting with high school students who might be interested in careers, that I offer, or I'm willing to come and speak to a classroom or give a plant tour, and they wouldn't get a call returned. We heard from educators who said, I reach out to a business and ask them to come in and speak to my class or to give a tour, and I don't get a call returned. And we said, okay, we can, this is a communication issue. We need to solve this. We need to address it. So Leader, we built this continuum of work-based learning types of activities that employers and education can get involved with. And I know that the text is really small on this slide, and I'm happy to get this graphic to Michelle and others, and they can get it out to you if you're interested in it. But there are activities that any employer can get involved in, through these three kind of pillars of learning about work, learning through work, and learning at work. So if you're not ready to start a registered apprenticeship program, then getting involved in internships or hosting a teacher extern for the summer. That's a new program that we have started with the Idaho STEM Action Center, where we'll be, this coming summer will be our third year. The first summer we had 16 teachers go into the workplace, into employers, and spend 200 hours over the summer. They were paid a stipend. They not only were doing a job within that business, it was not a job shadow experience. It was, they were, doing very meaningful jobs for, that contributed to the bottom line of the company. But we also made sure that they had an opportunity to hear about the workforce challenges and the needs of the companies that they were hosted by. And that gave them the ability to go back to the classroom and not only provide real life examples of what they were teaching. Why is this important? Why do I need to know this? That's one of the things kids ask. And, the teachers go through a pathway, they get a bachelor's degree and then they start teaching. They don't necessarily have a chance to apply some of the theory and some of the things that they've learned. So they were able to go back into the classroom and, provide that relevance, but they were also able to talk about a wider variety of career opportunities. That first year, we hosted an extern, and we had a first grade teacher from the Nampa School District. And after the experience, we got an email from her that as a first grade teacher, one of the things that she does is she teaches about community. And, during her discussions on community, she would, have conversations about, what people do in the community. And she would, say, well, there's firemen and doctors and policemen and, those types. And she said, I probably talked about 10 different occupations was all. And after the experience, she went back and she said that she designed this activity where her class built a cardboard city. And each week they would add on to it and talk about the different types of jobs that it took in order to operate that part of the city. So, we have roads. How do the roads get built? Who builds the, what kind of jobs does it take to build roads? You need engineers, you need construction workers, you need, architects and surveyors, and it would give her the opportunity to talk about that. And then another time, maybe talking about water and, other things. So she said that, by the end of the year, where previously she had maybe covered 10 different occupations, that she had, exposed these kids to over 100 different occupations. And, when you think about, well, is that important in first grade? It is. I mean, it really is. We need to expand the thinking of our kids and let them see the types of opportunities that they can have, and then make that real, make that relevant to their own community, so that they see opportunities ahead of them, and they can explore multiple different pathways as they're going through grade school and junior high and high school. So we've got huge opportunities ahead of us. We need to do a better job as a state of connecting education to careers, and we need to make sure that all Idahoans have, access to the types of jobs and careers that provide that economic mobility to sustain their families and contribute to society. So I think, when, we on a bigger, scale, we're all working towards the same goals. Employers desperately need to have a workforce that's going to, help them grow and, provide the jobs in our communities that we all need. And we need to invest, equally in our citizens to make sure that they're prepared for those jobs. So the Workforce Development Council, that's our role, is to help bridge those gaps, bridge those, connect, collaborate, ensure that we're doing the absolute best of investing the resources that we have as a state in creating a highly skilled, talented workforce. So I would love to answer any questions that I think Michelle might have for me. Hopefully she's going to be nice, since we've been friends for 15 years. She won't throw me any hardballs, but I really encourage any of you to reach out. My contact information and that of our business partnership manager is available to you. And I encourage you to reach out. And if there's, something that you're passionate about that you want to be involved with, we're going to find you an outlet for that, because there's just so much opportunity, so much to do. So, Michelle, any questions coming through on Facebook Live?
I've been monitoring from some questions for the group, but I actually have a couple for you. I'm glad you shared the externship example because I love that. Dealing with employers, I've had many industries say, I don't think young people even know that what we do is a job. And so that is just such a great example of a really simple change that can happen, but maybe people just don't think about it. My question for you is that I have found the Workforce Development Council to be very forward thinking and very innovative. And I know you are always monitoring the landscape nationally for what workforce initiatives and things are happening and really gaining success in other areas that could maybe be applied in Idaho. Do you have an example of some of the things that maybe you're looking at as potential opportunities for Idaho in the future?
So, I think where we are, well, let me step back and tell you that, yes, you're correct. I am looking around and seeing what others are doing and how could we implement or bring that to Idaho. And we're fortunate. There's states that have much deeper pockets, much many more resources that we do that have been very, very willing to share. And our apprenticeship initiatives, the youth apprenticeship model, is built after a model that Colorado deployed after the governor of Colorado and a group of business leaders visited Switzerland and looked at the Swiss apprenticeship model. And so we've been able to leverage and learn from all of the things that they had to go through, and have little bumps in the road. We don't have to do that because they're willing to share those efforts with us. I think one of the areas that I really see us working collaboratively as a state is between education, specifically post-secondary education, and workforce efforts to kind of look at what the future holds, because the pandemic really accelerated some changes that were already happening in post-secondary education. There's been an organization that's been doing public surveys since the start of the pandemic, focused on looking at what public perceptions of higher ed are, and how people who've been impacted by the pandemic, do they, are they planning to go back to school? Are they planning, and if they're planning to go back to school, what type of post-secondary education are they interested in? And the things that were, that we were starting to see the needle move on, people wanting more of the certificate level, the shorter term workforce, type of focused efforts versus the degree, the traditional campus experience, those have gone, it's been a major shift. And so, looking at how do we provide experiences, how do we provide opportunities, for all types of learners. Some of the challenges over the past couple of decades has been just the rising amount of student loan debt. Right, my numbers might be a year old or so, but I want to say that the average student loan debt is like $35,000 per person when they finish their bachelor's degree, and that's just too much. That's too much for what some of the entry-level jobs, that they're taking, pay. So, how do we balance that cost of education and the time, that it takes to get a degree with work-based learning, with what they can learn on the job? And how do we value those, on-the-job learning experiences as part of their degree program? So, opportunities to really integrate work-based learning into degree programs. What we want to make sure is that there are no dead ends. We want individuals to, if you got a Cisco, networking certificate, in order to, get your job, or your employer asked you to get that certificate. And, 2 years later, you decide that you want to go and get an associate's degree. That certificate should count for something. It should be able to be pulled in. You don't have to sit through the class that certificate, that what you learned in order to get that certificate would have taught you. So that counts for something. The time, that you spent working on, the issues that, that you would be, taught about in class, that should count for something, so that we just start to build these layers, and, we call it stackable credentials, right? Creating these opportunities for people to just continue to build, because the days where you go to college, you get out, you get a job, and you never engage in the post-secondary system again are gone. I mean, we all have to be lifelong learners. We all are going to have to continue. The technology is changing things so quickly. We're all going to have to adapt and continue to learn throughout our careers. So, if we can, start to really reimagine, how we deliver post-secondary education, to ensure that stackability, to provide access when somebody is working, because they don't have the ability to stop and go to college and, take 2 or 4 or 6 years of their life where they're not earning an income. We need to, we just, I see that as a huge opportunity ahead of us to really innovate. And the beautiful thing about Idaho is that we're small enough to just make it happen. We can do it. Like, we don't have all the bureaucracy, all of the things that other states and systems have. We can just get it done.
So I do have a question that's come in. It's kind of a two-parter, so I'm just going to read through it for you, but it's a great segue to some of what you just shared. The question says, in your opinion, is the younger talent that leaves our area leaving because of lack of specific or higher education opportunities, lack of career growth opportunities, meaning no options to move up locally in a sector, or livable wages? Are wages stagnant while the cost of living goes up compared to other places? The second part of the question would be, do you see any trends around those that are leaving, having a higher education or higher wage earners, while those that are staying are maybe more hourly or entry level kinds of jobs? So what kinds of trends are you seeing in those areas?
I would say all three of those contribute to why our youth leave. And also just because they think they need to go somewhere else. They think that they just need to go have a different experience, and then they might come back later. And I don't argue with that, right? I mean, I think some of us just needed to do that. We needed to expand our horizons and see different things. But I think that there is an enormous amount of sheer lack of visibility into the opportunities. I presented at the Twin Falls Chamber event a while back, and one of the folks came up afterwards telling me that his son was in a computer science program at the University of Idaho, and that he was going to have to leave the state to get a job. And I'm like, no, we have plenty of computer science jobs all throughout the state. So that lack of visibility is, into the career opportunities that we have is huge, and that's why in first grade, if they can start seeing those opportunities and knowing that those exist at home, that if they want to stay home, they can do that. I do think that access to post-secondary is certainly a challenge. We are in an incredibly rural state. I don't think rural is strong enough. I think we have, very remote parts of our state that, rural, and especially when you talk about rural with other states. I love talking to people from Maryland or Virginia or other things, and they're like, oh, rural. And we're like, you're 20 minutes from a big city. You're not rural. Try Idaho, we're 3 hours to the next, community of any size. So, so the lack of opportunity, for higher ed, but that's where, if we think about how we re-envision or reimagine, post-secondary, and we're providing, online opportunities and the, stackable, where they can get the parts and the pieces that they need, but they don't have to leave forever. So those are, and that problem's never going to go away. We're always going to have some of our youth leave. But what I want to make sure we do is give the ones that are passionate about staying, that want to stay, the ability to. The second part of that question was about, am I aware of any data or, anything that, kind of speaks to, are the youth that are leaving, in the kind of higher wage level versus the, lower tier jobs. And I hate to say right now, nothing is coming to mind that, provides like really strong evidence of that. I think that that's what everybody anecdotally believes. And I'll have to look and see whether there's any data that actually backs that up. But, again, I think if, the only way that we're going to solve some of these visibility challenges is if employers and education are working collaboratively. And it benefits everybody. It benefits everybody's bottom line, because I tell you, when you think about those soft skills, the workplace readiness skills, those are the kids that you're going to have to hire. If you don't help develop them, you're going to have to address it at some point, because, we just don't have, enough people in the state to fill all of the jobs that we're creating. And, so my first job was in Idaho Falls, and I'm going to totally date myself because, it was at the corn dog factory in the old mall, before I lived in Idaho Falls when the Grand Teton Mall was built. So, but those types of opportunities are what help kids develop those workplace skills, right? And some kids have to get fired from that first job in order to develop those skills. They have to, to learn that, no, you're not allowed to be on your phone, the entire time that you're working. So, the more we can do to create opportunities for our youth to work, that one of the I'm trying to think of it as the either the first or second highest segment of our population, second highest unemployment rate in our population is youth. And that just cascades. That just causes more and more problems down the road when our youth can't learn those skills, can't, try out different careers, try out different things. It is a success story if a kid takes a job and determines that they never, ever want to have to do that again in their life, right? Now they're motivated to do something different, and they're going to figure out how to do that. So
that's a great point, Wendi. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope those that get to view this broadcast, either those who were here with us live or who come back and watch later, really figure out some opportunities where their businesses can get engaged with the Workforce Development Council and continue to add to the workforce dialogue that we have for the state. So thank you very much for joining us.
Michelle, can I mention that Liza, who isn't here today, but Liza Leonard has just recently been appointed to the council, and so she is going to be an amazing conduit for anyone who wants to reach out and engage with us.
Yes, you can mention that, and we're so excited to hear that. Liza has been a longtime engaged member of our Rotary Club, and we will be glad to have her representing our region for your council. So with that, everybody, we just want to thank you all for joining us for our luncheon presentations for 2020. We hope you will come back and continue to see speakers with us beginning again in January. And again, just have a wonderful and safe holiday season with your families and friends, and take care of yourselves, and we will talk to you all soon. Thank you all very much for joining us.